Hey, everybody, this is Jeff Cohen coming to you with our Resonate 2020 virtual update event. Today, I have James Thomson on with me. Hey, James, how are you?
Good to be here again. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Awesome. Always appreciate when you and I get a chance to catch up. For people that don't know you, why don't you give, I don't know where you would live to not know who you are, but besides being a founder of Buy Box Experts and starting the Prosper Show, can you kind of give people a little quick update on who you are and kind of what your experience in the space is?
I'm James Thomson. I was fortunate enough to work at Amazon on the marketplace side for 6 years up until 2013. I was Amazon's first FBA account manager, and I ran Amazon Seller Services, the group recruiting most sellers to the platform. I've been involved with Amazon sellers, marketplace, 1P issues, basically nonstop since 2007, and focus on education, focus on helping people to make the most of the limited information that comes out of Amazon every time they make a change. And so here we are. You and I, Jeff, have known each other since 2013 when we first met at a conference. And
you caught me carrying a box of donuts in the conference.
There you go.
We won't go into that story today.
Yep.
So what we're trying to do today is talk about the topics that we've covered in Resonate in the past. In 2018, you spoke on auditing your account.
Right.
I had the chance to review that presentation, and there's links to that presentation below. And, you know, really what I thought was amazing about the information that you shared was that a lot of it is still very relevant today. In all honesty, and I don't know if you have thought back to what you presented, it was a while ago, the only thing that has significantly changed was the information you gave around tax.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else has still changed. And you and I talk about this on the side all the time, but I'm curious, like, what are the tried and true tactics around understanding your account, understanding how your account's doing that haven't changed, over the last couple of years that people should still be kind of thinking about?
Well, let me start by saying, if you think of your human body, you spend all this time eating, running around, getting stuff done, just getting through life, but you need to go and have an annual physical. And when you have an Amazon seller account, it's a lot of the same concept. And by the way, you don't wait to do it once a year. You should be looking at your account at least once a quarter, figuring out, gosh, do I have the right people signed in? Do people have too many permissions to be able to access my information? Have I changed my passwords recently? Are there any specific things that I'm doing that could potentially catch up and result in either my account being suspended or some of my important SKUs getting suppressed? All that kind of stuff is stuff that we should be doing. But unfortunately, it's easy to say that's all back burner projects for another day. Actually, you have to schedule it, and you have to make sure you look at these things to make sure that it's not a matter of, we clean our house once a year or do a big spring cleaning. You can't do a spring cleaning on your account once a year. You have to be going in and looking for cobwebs and making sure that this platform, which is the basis through which you make thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars flow through it every year, is it properly secure? Are you, in fact, in a position that you know who's in there looking at your account and able to access the information? I have seen many of our, not many, some of our new clients have come to us, and we go into the account and we say, oh my goodness, look at this. This account is teetering on the point where it's going to get shut down because nobody's looking at some of the basic settings on the account. Nobody's saying, why are there all these former employees that no longer work here? Why do they still have access to the account under non-company email addresses? I mean, there's all sorts of crazy stuff that we've seen. And
or it's even like you signed up for a third-party tool, you're no longer using it, but you never removed the permissions from that tool.
Yep. Here I am speaking to someone who works at a third-party tool. We've definitely seen companies that have literally 8 or 10 permissions that they've granted to various third-party tools because, as you say, they've tried out different tools to see what's what. Well, it turns out not only should companies no longer have access to your account when you don't use their services, who knows whether all these companies are necessarily following the rules.
Yep.
And certainly we've seen over the years, there are some companies that offer amazing deals to sellers to get integrated into their accounts. One's never quite sure what happens when those companies have access through the APIs. So that is just one situation where, at the end of the day, it comes down to, do you have a checklist of specific things that you need to track and check on your account on a monthly or quarterly basis, where you say, yep, I'm sure that I have a proper password to make sure that somebody's not easily going to hack it. Yes, I have two-factor authentication set up for myself and every other person who's using the account. Yes, I have only those people who need to be on the account, and they have the appropriate levels of permissions so that somebody can't come in and start making important changes to your account that will cause you to freak out one day when you discover that somebody's done something malicious because they no longer like you. That kind of stuff unfortunately happens. We have had situations 3 or 4 years ago where a couple of our clients actually got hacked. Somebody got into their accounts. We figured out who hacked both the accounts, and in both situations, it was just complete sloppiness on the part of the seller. And so think of it this way. An Amazon seller account is basically a bank with a little padlock on it, unless you decide that you're going to do something more extensive to make sure it's not just a little padlock. You've got to have the thing locked down. It is an ATM that pushes out a lot of cash, and if the wrong people get their hands on access to the account, whether it's the data or the cash that comes out of the account, in both situations, you could have a very troublesome situation to fix. So it's easy for me to sit here and sound like, oh my goodness, the sky is falling. It turns out the sky is not falling. The sky is falling if you let it fall, but if you're actually proactively looking at these things, if you've locked down the accounts with the right types of permissions and such. And by the way, I encourage you to look at the video from 2 years ago, because I went through a lot of the specific details where you go to fix things and check things. The actual process of auditing your account for verifying that you've got the right kind of securities and so on in place, if you do it properly, it's going to take you 15 minutes once a quarter.
Right. This isn't hours worth of work, but it's something that as a seller, you probably start to forget about as you start to get busy in other things. And I'm glad you referenced that back. I think you covered 9 different areas for auditing your account. And again, it's in the video if you want the details, and the detail highlights are there. I wanted to move on and ask you, we always like to say, like, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
What are the things that looking back, if you knew then, if you knew, like, what do you know now that you wish you knew then, and is something that is like a key insight for people to be thinking about in terms of, securing your account or auditing your account today versus something you would have done a couple of years ago?
You raised the point about sales tax, and I actually want to talk about sales tax for a minute. So in the last 2 years, Amazon has made arrangements with the tax authorities in about 40 plus states, where Amazon will now collect the sales tax and remit it on behalf of third-party sellers. For many sellers, they think, great, my job is done with sales tax. It turns out your job is not done. The seller still needs to file paperwork with the state indicating, I sold $100,000 of product in your state. Amazon collected this much tax. Amazon paid this much tax. But you actually have to file this bureaucratic piece of paper to make sure that the state has indication from you that you have actually done the right thing. And unfortunately, we're still continuing to see a lot of sellers who say, well, my job is done. I don't have to file any paperwork because Amazon's filing all the paperwork. They're filing the part of the paperwork where they pay the taxes, but they're not filing the administrative paperwork that says you had this many dollars of sales and you paid this much tax. And so sellers are still going to be on the radar of some of these state auditors who are saying, I'm not sure that you don't have other sales outside of Amazon. You need to tell me this. I hate dealing with tax groups. I hate dealing with it because they're ruthless. And the reality is I could avoid a lot of that if I just filed the paperwork. Right. So to the extent that you're a seller, you're already
doing what you need to do. You just need to take like the final step.
The final step. You're not likely going to end up having to pay penalties, but you're going to have to deal with a whole bunch of paperwork that's really annoying to deal with. So talk to a online sales tax expert and figure out what paperwork you do need to file. It doesn't get filed as often as the other paperwork that Amazon's filing, but you still need to make sure some paperwork's filed.
Yeah,
That would.
I know you and I both, refer a lot to Michael Fleming,
Mhm.
who has been on some different podcasts and
Yep.
things with me in the past, and I'm sure there's plenty of others in the space, but people sometimes like a name or somebody to go to. Is there any
Yeah.
other kind of go-to name or site to read if they wanted to get more information on that?
Yeah, so Michael Fleming is definitely one of the experts. There's a lady called Diane Yetter. She's also a fantastic resource for online seller taxes and such. At the end of the day, even if you're using, let's say you're using Avalara or TaxJar or one of these types of companies, talk to them. If they don't have somebody in house, they'll refer somebody to you, and they'll probably refer you to Diane or to Mike, anyways.
Right,
But
right. They have good relationships. They
the
actually
point
sit
is,
inside their booth at shows.
yeah. But the point is, the tax man always wins, and
Yeah.
so don't make your life miserable because you're ignoring the tax man.
So
The,
so let's ask the question. So what are something that you may still be doing today
Mhm.
that you don't need to be doing and you really just need to stop? And it can be within auditing your account, or it could be within
Sure.
selling in general, of just like, hey, the world's moved on. It's time for you to move on.
Let me put it this way. There are still too many sellers that don't know about this category listing report. And the category listing report, as far as I'm concerned, is the um, what is it? The pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that sellers should be looking at
Yeah, I
at
remember
least
when
on a
I
quarterly
remember
basis.
I remember when I learned about it the first time. I remember who taught me about it, and I remember learning about it the first time, and it was like this, like, mind blown.
Yeah, so the category listing report is a report you have to ask Amazon to turn on for your Seller Central account, and they turn it on for 7 or 30 days. But basically, what it produces is a list of every SKU in your catalog and all the data that is currently live on Amazon against that listing. So you can see what the bullet points are. You can see what the generic keywords are. You can see what your sales tax setting is. You can see all this kind of information, including things like, is there a list price that's currently in the Amazon catalog? When you look at all this information, whether your catalog is big or small, you can very quickly scan to see, am I missing out on critical fields of data? Do I have misclassifications of my data in my catalog? That kind of stuff. If you're manually clicking through one listing at a time within your manage inventory tab, I'm sorry, but that's wildly inefficient. And quite frankly, you're going to be missing out on a lot of information where you can pinpoint exactly where you need to go to make changes. I think of the process of managing an Amazon account around, basically, it's a situation where you're looking for the whack-a-mole that you need to go and address. What kind of variance reports do you have in place that tell you, hey, my listing got changed? Hey, somebody's done something over here, or hey, the inventory is about to run low. If you've got a decent sized catalog, more than 50, 60 SKUs, keeping track of that on a daily basis and being able to react quickly, there are all sorts of third-party tools out there that you can use that will allow you to set up alerts on whatever criteria it is that are important to you. You need to invest the time to set up those alerts and look at those alerts. Just as Amazon sends you alerts on, hey, we changed a rule, or hey, there's some new policy about this or that, you've got to have your own alerts that say, I absolutely need to know when inventory levels go below a certain point for certain SKUs, or I absolutely need to know that SKUs that I apparently have brand registry on, if somehow the content gets changed by somebody external, I absolutely need to know. Well, set up the alerts. If you've got enough of the right variance reports set up, then you can wake up every morning and boom, there's a bunch of emails there, or hopefully there's not a lot of emails there. But
Right.
in either case, you can sit down, you can say, where do I need to focus the next hour of my life to make sure that I put out the biggest or most important fires related to my Amazon seller account? That kind of enablement of technology to make your life easier, spend the money. If it
Yeah.
costs you $100 a month or $200 a month, spend the money.
It's
Because
peace of
quite
mind.
frankly, yeah, it's not only peace of mind, it's what is technology meant to do?
Right.
It's meant to help you automate mind-numbing tasks that, quite frankly, if they're mind-numbing, we usually forget about them or we deprioritize them. Well, they can't be deprioritized. You have to be on top of inventory and catalog content and so on and so forth. So spend the money, look at third-party tools that can help you do these different types of alerts. Figure out, are you losing share? Are you losing margin? Have you gone through and evaluated your whole catalog and made sure that every SKU makes sense from a financial perspective? I didn't say that was exciting work to do, but if you're not doing that kind of auditing, you're basically spending a bunch of time to help Amazon make money while you're sitting there going, why am I not making any money?
Right.
So, these types of things seem obvious at the surface, but it requires a process to go through and evaluate and make sure, yes, I'm making money. Yes, I've secured my account. Yes, my content is the content I want it to be. Yes, I'm paying the tax man. I didn't say any of these things were exciting, but again, when you go in to have a physical once a year and the doctor looks at your blood pressure and your weight and all this kind of stuff, none of it's exciting, but it tells a story of how well you're managing the account. Now, here's the clincher. I work with a bunch of private equity companies that are, in the process of buying Amazon seller accounts. They can very quickly tell which accounts have been properly managed by way of doing regular physicals to make sure that the account is properly run. If you're thinking of building your Amazon seller account up to the point that you're going to sell that business at some point, and you're not doing these types of audits, it's pretty obvious to a potential buyer that you haven't been keeping the cobwebs out of the account. And so it's a much better experience as a potential investor to go in and say, yep, these guys look like they know what they're doing when it comes to keeping a clean house. There may still be some issues about the account, but the issues are not basic block and tackling issues that the seller should have been properly maintaining.
Yeah. So to kind of summarize a few things up here. One,
Yeah.
if you need one takeaway from today, from this video, go get your catalog listing report. It's a report you have to request through Seller Central. Again, in the video below, you can get more details on how to request that, as well as what to do when you get that. In addition to that, I would say that set it up your notifications. If you're using Seller Labs Pro, we have a new notification center that has many of the notifications James talked about, as well as in our catalog. In our catalog center, you can set your inventory refillment times, replenishment times, as well as your profitability, so you can be tracking on those as well. Or if you have a different tool, you can be setting that up. I want to end with predictions just quickly here. It's been 5 years since we started Resonate. I know we've been in the industry longer, but where are we 5 years from now? What's the big prediction of where this is going and where sellers should be thinking of as the next frontier?
Amazon made an announcement actually today related to the identities of third-party sellers. And I think this is going to have a seismic impact on any seller today that is a reseller of other people's products. With Amazon now making the identities and contact information of sellers public information starting in early September, for anybody that is deemed what I'll call an unauthorized seller or a gray market seller of someone else's brand, it's going to make things a whole lot easier for brands to go after these types of sellers. And so for anyone listening today that happens to have a business model that includes selling products without permission from the brand, be aware that there will be many more eyes on your account and many more people who will be looking to have you removed from selling certain products. And so thinking about what your long-term business plan is going to be and to what extent is that going to be working directly or with permission from brands versus building your own brands, or continuing to do retail arbitrage or being a gray market seller. There are risks to every one of these models. I think the business models that involve reselling other brands without permissions from the brand, those types of sellers are going to be at a disadvantage starting in early September. So that's just issue number one. We've had multiple changes of business models over the years where drop shipping used to be a cool thing. Big time retail arbitrage used to be a cool thing. These types of business models become harder and harder to work as Amazon continues to shift how it prioritizes the types of sellers it wants on its platform.
Great. Appreciate having you on today, James. Again, you can watch James's full video from 2018, which is still very relevant today in how to audit your account and setting your account up for long-term success. And thank you, and look forward to having you at a future Resonate event.
Thanks for having me on today, Jeff.